Hi, I'm Neema. Nice to meet you. Before I tell you my story, kindly tell me in the comments where you're watching from and hit the subscribe button. I like to know where you're from. Now let's dive in. That morning felt ordinary. Too ordinary. Naomi spilled juice on her school uniform. Jonah barely looked up from his phone during breakfast. And Celeste, my mother-in-law who had somehow moved in temporarily 9 months ago, reminded me we were out of her almond milk. Again. I kissed Naomi on the forehead, promised we'd finish her puzzle that evening, then rushed off to work, thinking the worst thing that might happen today was traffic. I wish traffic had been the worst part. By 10:42 a.m., I was in my manager's office, facing a printed letter and the kind of rehearsed sympathy that corporate people wear like a cheap suit. "Neema, this isn't performance-related," he said, tapping the edge of the desk nervously. "The board made some hard decisions, and unfortunately, I was being let go. Effective immediately. 10 years. No warning. No thank you. Just a box of my things and a hollow best of luck." I didn't cry in the elevator. I didn't cry in the parking lot. I just drove. Part of me wanted to call Jonah, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the way he'd been so distant lately. Maybe it was the way Celeste had been whispering behind closed doors. Either way, I wasn't in the mood to hear empty advice from people who thought struggle made you weak. I pulled into the driveway around 1 p.m., earlier than expected. The house looked normal. Too normal. I stepped inside, still holding the envelope with the termination letter. I just needed a few moments of peace before figuring out my next move. But the second I walked into the living room, I knew peace wasn't on the agenda. Jonah stood near the stairs, arms folded. Celeste was on the couch, posture stiff and alert. They looked like they'd been waiting. "Why are you home so early?" Jonah asked. I held up the envelope. "I got laid off." "Surprise." He blinked. No hug. No concern. Just a slow glance at Celeste, like he'd just been handed a winning card. "What's that look?" I asked, already bracing for something ugly. Celeste stood and handed me a folded piece of paper. Her movements were precise. Too precise. I took it with suspicion and read, "Petition for emergency custody." I laughed. Out loud. "Okay. You two are hilarious." No one laughed with me. "Wait," I said, lowering the paper. "You're serious?" "You just lost your job," Jonah said calmly. "Things are unstable right now. We're just thinking about Naomi's well-being." I blinked, stunned. "Jonah, I have been keeping this household afloat for the past 4 years. You don't have a steady income. Your startup's been in debt since day one. And now, when I get laid off, suddenly I'm a threat to my own daughter." Celeste raised a hand like she was conducting a courtroom. "It's not personal, Neema. It's about Naomi. You're under stress. Emotional instability can affect parenting." "Oh, don't you dare," I snapped. "You live in my house, eat my food, and spend your days judging me for breathing too loud, and now you want to erase me?" "We're giving you a chance to regroup," Jonah said, as if he were doing me a favor. "This isn't permanent." "Oh, the hell it isn't," I said, throwing the paper down. "You want me out of this house and out of Naomi's life. Admit it." "We already arranged for her to stay with my sister for a few days," Jonah added. My mouth fell open. "You took her without even asking me?" "You were at work." "I am her mother." My voice shook. "You think a job loss changes that? You think you can just ambush me and I'll disappear quietly?" Jonah wouldn't even look at me. "Coward." "Fine," I whispered. "You want me gone?" "I'm gone." I didn't pack. Didn't cry. I just grabbed my keys and walked out. But I wasn't heading to a friend's couch. I wasn't running away. I was going to the beach. To my beach house. They didn't know about it. Not Jonah. Not Celeste. No one. I bought it under a different name 2 years ago, a little insurance policy, just in case the storm ever came. And now, the storm had a name. But so did the survivor. I don't remember much about the drive. Just the sound of the wind against the window and the ache in my chest, like something sacred had been torn from me without warning. I didn't even bring a change of clothes. I just drove, running on instinct and adrenaline, until I saw the ocean. And there it was. My beach house. tucked behind tall palms, quiet and untouched. White shutters, sand-coated steps, and that soft creak in the front gate that always sounded like a sigh of relief. I hadn't been here in months, maybe a year. But the moment I stepped inside, it felt like the only place in the world that still belonged to me. I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter and finally exhaled. Then I collapsed. Right there on the cold tile floor, the dam broke. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. Loud, ugly sobs that came from somewhere deeper than grief. It wasn't just about the job or the betrayal. It was everything. 10 years of sacrifice, of shrinking myself to make a man feel big, of pretending Celeste's insults were just old-school wisdom. 10 years of being the glue that held everything together, only to be thrown out like trash the moment I cracked. When the tears stopped, I just sat there, empty but breathing. That's when I remembered the files. I got up, wiped my face, and pulled the storage bin from under the bed in the guest room. Inside was everything they never knew existed. Ownership papers for the beach house, my LLC documents, and the quarterly statements for a tech consultancy company I started quietly 3 years ago. The company, Mindscope Solutions, had grown faster than I expected. What started as a side hustle helping small firms with back-end analytics had exploded into six-figure contracts. I hired 2 remote employees under NDAs and funneled most of the profits into private investments and real estate, one of which was the beach house. Jonah always assumed my bonuses came from corporate sales. He never bothered to ask. Celeste? She just thought I was lucky to get promoted so fast. They didn't know I had built something that could carry me and Naomi without them. And now, that company would be my weapon. I spent the rest of the night planning. I called a lawyer I'd once met at a women's leadership retreat, a firecracker named Layla who specialized in family law and asset protection. Left her a message. Then I emailed my accountant and asked him to prepare a full financial overview of Mindscope and its cash flow. If they were taking me to court, I'd go, but not empty-handed. Let them come for me thinking I was weak. Let them imagine I was sleeping on a friend's couch, crying into soup. Let Celeste sip her tea and gloat while Jonah rehearsed courtroom lines. They'd find out soon enough. I wasn't just coming back. I was coming back with receipts. The next morning, I stood on the balcony watching the waves roll in, coffee in hand, mind buzzing. Naomi's face haunted me. Her laugh. The way she always called me Mama instead of Mom. Had she asked for me last night? Did Jonah lie and say I was away for work? I hated that I didn't know. Hated that they had control. But not for long. Because now I was building my strategy, not out of vengeance, but out of necessity. I wasn't just going to fight for custody. I was going to burn the lie they built down to the foundation. And when it was all over, Naomi and I would stand on this balcony together, the wind in her curls, her laughter echoing across the shore. This house wasn't just shelter. It was the beginning of the end for them. The first real move I made wasn't in a courtroom. It was on a group chat. There's this WhatsApp group for Naomi's class parents, birthday reminders, bake sale signups, the usual middle-class parenting circus. I used to roll my eyes at it. But now, it was a goldmine. Jonah had already started whispering to people, spinning his version that I'd gone off the rails, that I was struggling mentally, and that Naomi was better off staying with family while I got myself sorted out. They were painting me as some unstable woman unraveling in silence. No, not today. I opened the chat, scrolled past someone's post about gluten-free cupcakes, and typed slowly, deliberately. Hi everyone, just a quick update from me. I've taken some time off after a work transition, and I'll be back at Naomi's school events very soon. She's the light of my life, and nothing will keep me from her. Just wanted to say thank you for the kind messages I've received. Some stories floating around aren't true, and I look forward to setting things right, legally and otherwise. Stay well. Simple. Civil controlled. But oh, it hit. Within minutes, my inbox started buzzing. People reaching out. Some confused. Some suspicious. A few even apologetic. One mom, Danielle, sent me a voice note. Girl, I knew something was off with Jonah. You always look tired. If you ever want to talk, I've got wine and a babysitter. It wasn't about getting sympathy. It was about regaining narrative. Jonah and Celeste thought they could define me in my absence, make me the villain in a story I built with my own hands. But I wasn't vanishing. I was reappearing. On my terms. By that afternoon, Layla, the lawyer, called back. Sharp, direct, and already furious on my behalf. They blindsided you while knowing you had no legal counsel, she asked. Completely, I said. They filed for emergency custody while your daughter was in your care the day before? Did they cite abuse? Drugs. No. Just instability. She laughed. We're going to bury that nonsense. I told her about the beach house. The business. The financials. She paused. You've been sitting on this kind of leverage? I was trying to protect it, I said quietly. In case this day ever came. Well, it's here, she replied. And you're not just going to defend yourself, you're going to dominate. She sent over a list of documents to prepare. Tax returns. Naomi's school records. Evidence of my financial contributions to the household. Photos. Receipts. Everything. I got to work like my life depended on it, because it did. 2 days later, I received the first text from Jonah. We should talk. Oh, now you want to talk? I stared at the message for a full minute, then tossed the phone onto the couch. Not yet. The truth is, part of me still hurt. Not just from the betrayal, but from how quickly he folded under pressure. No fight. No loyalty. No hesitation. He chose convenience over character. And he let his mother make the call. But I wasn't grieving anymore. I was evolving. That evening, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror of the beach house. My face looked older, sharper. Not tired, just carved. Like a woman who had walked through fire and decided to build a fireplace with the ashes. I thought of Naomi again. Her missing front tooth. The way she called seagulls sea chickens. The bedtime song we made up together. She wasn't a pawn. She wasn't leverage. She was mine. And no judge, no smear campaign, no cold-blooded mother-in-law was going to rip her from me. This wasn't just about winning custody. It was about reclaiming my name, my narrative, and my damn dignity. Let them keep talking. I was just getting started. The thing about manipulative people is that they never fight fair. They don't come at you directly. They wait, they plot, they stage things. And I should have seen it coming. But I didn't. Not right away. It started with a message from Naomi's teacher. Hi, Ms. Neema. I just wanted to confirm what days Naomi will be returning to school under your care so we can update the emergency contact list accordingly. My stomach turned. Emergency contact list? My care? I hadn't even been allowed to speak to Naomi since Jonah had taken her to his sister's. And now, apparently, I wasn't listed on the damn contact form at all. I called the school instantly. The secretary put me on hold. Then the principal picked up. Ms. Neema, I'm afraid we've been advised by Mr. Jonah that there's an ongoing custody dispute. Until it's resolved, we've been told to route all matters through him directly. I'm her mother, I said, heat rising to my face. There is no court ruling. There is no legal restriction. You're cutting me out based on what he said. I understand your frustration. No, I don't think you do. What you're doing is illegal. I suggest you update your legal team before I involve mine. I hung up before I started screaming. They were isolating me, bit by bit. First the house, then Naomi, now the school. And I knew exactly whose idea that was. Celeste. Jonah didn't have the spine for this level of manipulation. But Celeste? She had been waiting for this moment. She didn't just want me out. She wanted me erased. And the worst part? They were trying to make me look unstable if I dared to fight back. Layla confirmed it an hour later. They're laying a foundation, she said. Controlling Naomi's access, restricting your communication, creating a narrative that you're irrational or threatening. They want you to lash out. And if I do, they'll use it in court. Of course. They were baiting me, waiting for me to snap so they could point and say, see? Look at how emotional she is. Look how unfit. But they didn't realize something very important. I grew up around snakes. I know how to watch without blinking. I stayed calm. That night, I drafted a quiet letter. No threats, no emotion. Just a formal statement requesting equal access to Naomi's school records, backed by the fact that I had joint legal custody by default until a court said otherwise. Layla filed it. Then I logged into my backup email, the one Jonah didn't know about, and pulled up every financial document I had ever signed for that man. Loans I co-signed. Bills I paid. The business account I once helped him open. Every detail mattered now. Not just for custody, but for leverage. I printed everything and filed it in a blue folder. Labeled it in red ink. If they come for blood. Then came the real blow. The next morning, Jonah texted again. You should come see Naomi. She's been asking for you. My breath caught. Finally. Tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. My sister's house. I knew it wasn't just a gesture of kindness. It felt too easy. Too arranged. So I prepared. I wore a soft cardigan. Brought a small gift, Naomi's favorite puzzle book. Drove with my dashcam on and recorded a time-stamped voice memo before I rang the doorbell. Jonah opened the door, smiling too wide. Hey, he said like he hadn't tried to erase me. She's inside. Celeste was in the kitchen. Watching. Naomi came running into the room. Her face lit up, and my heart almost gave out. She threw her arms around me like she'd been holding her breath the whole time. But then Jonah said it. Loudly. Clearly. See, Naomi? Mommy came today, even though she's been struggling with her nerves. Isn't that nice of her? I froze. Naomi looked up at me, confused. Mommy, are you sick? My mouth went dry. No, baby. I'm just missing you. Celeste chimed in, holding a mug like it was her scepter. Mommy just needs a little rest, sweetheart. That's why you've been staying with Auntie, remember? It was a performance. And I was on stage, being baited. Again. They wanted me to snap, in front of Naomi. In front of witnesses. But I didn't. I knelt down and kissed my daughter's forehead. I love you, and I'm coming to get you soon. Okay. Okay, she whispered. I stood up, looked Jonah dead in the eyes, and smiled. Thanks for letting me see her. And then I walked out calmly. But inside, I was on fire. Back at the beach house, I opened the blue folder. I pulled out the co-signed loan document. And I called Layla. It's time, I said. I want to freeze our joint accounts. She didn't hesitate. Let's draw blood. When I was younger, my aunt used to say, let them think you're soft until you break the table they're sitting at. I never understood that, until now. The morning after I called Layla, I sat at the kitchen table in my beach house and stared at the screen as I authorized the freezes. One after another, our shared checking account, Jonah's access to the joint savings, the investment account I'd once stupidly let him link to for emergencies. Click. Gone. Locked. If he wanted war, he could pay for it himself. 10 minutes later, Layla called. Done. We've also filed for an emergency hearing to establish temporary custody and formally document that Naomi has been withheld from you without consent. They'll be served by tomorrow. I leaned back, letting the words settle. For the first time in days, I wasn't just reacting. I was leading. And it felt good. By noon, Jonah's texts started coming in. First casual, then urgent. What the hell, Neema? I can't access anything. You're being vindictive now. Real mature. We have bills to pay. Naomi's needs don't stop just because you're bitter. That last one made me laugh. Bitter? Please. I didn't respond. He could talk to my attorney now. I wasn't giving him the emotional performance he craved. An hour later, I got a call from his number. I let it ring. Then again, this time a video call. Declined. 3 minutes passed. Then Celeste called. I answered. Neema, this is childish, she started. No, Celeste. Childish is trying to manipulate a child. I don't know what you think you're doing. I'm protecting what's mine. And since neither of you seem to understand boundaries, I've decided it's time to legally define them. You're destroying your own family. No, you destroyed it. The day you turned my husband into your puppet and tried to rip my daughter out of my life like I was some inconvenience. She went quiet. Then she tried to pivot. We can settle this without dragging Naomi into court. Oh, don't worry, I said calmly. Naomi won't be dragged anywhere. But you? I hope you brought good shoes. Click. That night, I opened the old file cabinet in the study and laid out all my receipts, literal and figurative. Photos of me at Naomi's school, events Jonah never showed up to. Emails from her pediatrician addressed only to me. A journal entry Naomi wrote last fall that said, "My mommy helps me with math and makes me feel brave." I wasn't building a defense. I was building a narrative. Truth with teeth. I even had financial logs showing I'd paid 82% of all household expenses over the past 5 years. Rent, food, school supplies, even Celeste's medication. And all while secretly growing Mindscope Solutions, my company. My empire, really. It now had 4 contractors, 2 silent partnerships, and enough quarterly income to fund Naomi's education through college. I had proof that Jonah never contributed to it, that he never asked about it, that he never even suspected it existed. Because I was always the quiet one, the calm one, the good wife who didn't raise her voice, just raised the roof over everyone's head. They had no idea who they were fighting. The next morning, Jonah's car pulled up outside the beach house. Bold. I didn't open the door. Just watched from the window as he stood there, hands on his hips, pacing like he was the one who'd been betrayed. Then he rang the doorbell. Twice. "Neema," he called out. "Come on. We don't have to do this like this." I didn't answer. I wasn't giving him a second of unrecorded space. I wanted everything documented now. Every word. Every twitch. Every false concern. He knocked once more, then left. And I smiled. He was starting to panic. And panic makes people sloppy. Later that day, Layla called again. "We got a court date. Next week." "Fast," I said. "They want to push for mediation, but I already declined." "You're not settling. You're winning." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "It's time." As the sun dipped behind the sea, I stood barefoot in the sand, Naomi's puzzle book in one hand and a folder of court documents in the other. They tried to corner me, gaslight me, erase me. But what they didn't understand was, I was never the weak one. I just stopped making them feel strong. When you stop reacting and start watching, people get careless. That's what happened next. Jonah started to slip. I could see it in his texts. Frantic, scattered, less composed. He'd gone from threats to guilt trips to begging and back again in under 24 hours. The silence from me? It rattled him. But it was the bank alert that gave me my first real crack in their armor. A flagged transaction came through my inbox, one that shouldn't have been there. An old joint credit card I hadn't used in over a year. The statement showed a $4,200 charge made after I froze the primary accounts. I called the bank immediately. Apparently, Jonah had tried and failed to transfer money from the frozen account, then used an old auto-linked credit card still in his Apple Wallet. He thought I wouldn't notice. He thought I was too emotional to look at the numbers. Rookie mistake. I disputed the charge. Froze the card. Then I logged into the shared cloud account he forgot we had, the one he used to sync files between his laptop and phone. He hadn't cleared it in months. That's where I found it. A scanned document. A backdated lease agreement. Jonah had signed Naomi's name, yes, our 7-year-old daughter, as a secondary occupant on a supposed rental property agreement. A tiny studio registered under his name but allegedly shared with me and Naomi. It looked like an attempt to create a paper trail, like I'd willingly left the family home to live elsewhere without Naomi. He was building fake evidence to suggest I'd abandoned the marital residence and had willingly relinquished custody. It was sloppy. Pathetic, actually. But it could have worked if I hadn't caught it. I forwarded the file to Layla. She called me within 10 minutes. "This is fraud," she said, her voice razor sharp. "Not just in custody court, this could be criminal if we play it right. You think we should use it? We'll keep it in our pocket until the hearing. Let him walk in thinking he's the one with ammo. Then we drop this." I hung up, staring at the file on my screen. The lengths he was willing to go, they weren't about Naomi. They were about control. But Jonah wasn't the only one hiding things. That same night, I got a DM on Instagram. From a name I didn't recognize, Brittany L. I opened it with caution. The message was short. "Hey Neema. I used to work at Jonah's old real estate company. Thought you should see this before your hearing. Check your email. Stay strong." Attached to the email was a PDF of Celeste's signed affidavit, submitted as part of Jonah's original emergency custody petition. It was, well, Celeste had claimed that she'd personally witnessed me yelling uncontrollably at Naomi, slamming doors, and making repeated threats to harm myself. Every word was a lie. And worse, she had sworn it under oath. I felt the rage crawl up my spine like a fever. I had welcomed this woman into my home, into my child's life. I had cooked for her, let her sleep under my roof, and she repaid me with fabricated abuse claims. But here's what she didn't count on. She wrote that affidavit on a date when I was in Phoenix, at a tech conference. I had photos, a plane ticket, a whole panel discussion with a time-stamped recording. Layla practically squealed when I told her. "We're going to eviscerate them," she said. "This isn't just defense anymore. This is exposure." For the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. No more guessing. No more wondering. The truth was stacking up in my favor. I didn't need to smear them. They had already done it to themselves and left fingerprints all over the mess. The day before the court hearing, I went to Naomi's school. I had filed the official paperwork. The school had updated the contact list. I walked into the main office, gave my name, and waited. Naomi saw me from down the hall. "Mama," she shouted, running toward me. I scooped her up, breathing in that warm, familiar scent of crayons and cocoa butter. "I missed you so much, baby." "I told Auntie I wanted to come home," she whispered. "She said you were sick." I kissed her forehead. "They lied. I'm not sick. I'm strong. And I'm coming to get you." She nodded like she already knew. Because she did. Because kids can smell truth like smoke. That night, I packed my files, made copies, laid out my documents in neat stacks. I went over every word of Celeste's affidavit. Every photo. Every receipt. They thought I would break. But they forgot. You can't break someone who already crawled through hell and built a beach house on the other side. There's a silence that comes the morning of a courtroom battle. Not fear. Not doubt. Just stillness. Like the air before a hurricane, when everything knows something's about to change. That was me at 6:42 a.m. I sat on the edge of my bed, already dressed in a deep blue suit that felt like armor. Hair pulled back. No makeup, just clean skin and clear eyes. My documents were in the leather folder beside me. Truth. Proof. Power. I didn't rehearse what I'd say. I didn't have to. They'd written the story for me. I was just going to show the judge the truth and let it speak. Layla picked me up. She was in full command mode, crisp, calm, but smiling like she knew we were walking in with a loaded deck. Because we were. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Jonah was already there, flanked by his lawyer and his mother, Celeste, who wouldn't look at me. Good. I didn't want her apologies. I wanted her accountability. Naomi wasn't there. I asked for that. I didn't want her witnessing this. She'd been through enough. This was for the grown-ups. The judge, a middle-aged woman with gray streaks in her hair and a stare that could cut glass, called us to order. She didn't waste time. "Let's begin." Jonah's lawyer led with their claim that I was emotionally unstable, unemployed, and had willingly removed myself from the home in Naomi's daily life. I kept my face still. Let them dig. Celeste's affidavit was submitted. The fake lease. The so-called timeline of erratic behavior. The judge nodded, took notes. But her eyes narrowed the moment she scanned the lease document. Then it was our turn. Layla stood like she'd been waiting for this all her life. "Your Honor, we're not just refuting these claims. We're showing that they are deliberate fabrications intended to strip my client of her parental rights and reputation." She began with the lease. First, Layla said, the alleged lease was never signed or seen by my client. Second, and more importantly, the co-signature listed is that of her 7-year-old daughter, which is both illegal and impossible. The judge's brows lifted. She scribbled furiously. Then Layla submitted the screenshots from Jonah's cloud account, his attempt to backdate the document, the metadata showing it was created after I'd already been removed from the home. Strike one. Then came Celeste's affidavit. Layla held up the affidavit, then projected my Phoenix plane ticket, time-stamped photos, conference registration, and hotel receipts, all dated the exact day Celeste claimed I was home threatening self-harm in front of Naomi. Strike two. And then the emails. Layla handed the judge copies of messages Jonah sent after the custody petition. Messages where he offered to make all this go away if I just signed over certain assets and gave up full custody. Your Honor, Layla said, this was never about Naomi's safety. It was about money, control, and silencing a woman they didn't expect to fight back. Strike 3. Silence fell in that courtroom. The judge finally looked up. First at Jonah, then at Celeste, then at me. Mrs. Neema, she said, my name, said with dignity for the first time in weeks. Do you have anything you wish to say directly to the court? I stood. My hands didn't shake. I've been called unstable, unfit, and selfish. But I've been the only parent who didn't lie, who didn't manipulate, who didn't commit fraud. All I've done is fight to protect my daughter from people who confused control with love. Naomi is not a pawn. She's a child. My child. And I will protect her. With everything I have. The judge stared at me for a long second. Then nodded. Thank you. The ruling came after a short recess. Full legal and physical custody granted to Neema Anderson. Joint assets frozen pending investigation into fraud. Supervised visitation granted to Jonah pending psychological evaluation. Celeste barred from contact until further review. I didn't cry. I just exhaled. For the first time in what felt like years. Layla hugged me. You did it. No, I said quietly. They did this to themselves. That night, Naomi walked barefoot across the living room of the beach house, her beach house now, and curled into my lap. You're not sad anymore, she said sleepily. No, I whispered. I'm not. The waves outside hit the shore like a soft applause. And for once, the silence didn't feel like something broken. It felt like peace. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, kindly like and subscribe. See you next time.